what the deck has is the fourth color it's added to junk is going to be the red, and the reason it adds it is for 4 Boros Reckoner, and this one has Sire of Insanity, Boros Reckoner, Faithless Looting, and he actually has 1 Boros Battle Shaper in his main deck.
That's one that we will have to show you guys.
Yeah. When he draws it, it's kind of an interesting card to ramp into. He's playing against David Kilmartin, who's piloting the Rock. This is not a new deck, but it's kind of been one of the more fringe decks of the format.
Yeah.
It's designed to be an anti-aggro weapon. It can do, in a pinch, it can do some other things, but this is going to be a tough matchup for Kilmartin.
So both players seated and appear to be considering their opening 7. And it looks like we're good, so Meru is going to get things started with a Rootbound Crag.
Yeah, so remember, both these are our 2 Thragtusk decks in the format. Both decks are going to be hoping to play, kind of like build their way up to these mid-range threats. I think the difference is that Bhanot has this great card advantage engine, whereas Kilmartin, for the most part, is playing fair.
We have a Faithless Looting from Meru.
All right, and Bhanot's going to, Meru's going to go ahead and get his engine online. We see the Faithless Looting. And the question is going to be how many of these flashback cards is he going to be able to get rid of? You see Boros Battle Shaper and then another card.
So why don't we show Boros Battle Shaper real quick, since that has been dumped into the graveyard. You can see it's a 5/5 for 7.
Yeah. So mostly known as a Powerhouse Unlimited, Boros Battle Shaper, yeah, it is a 5/5. It makes at the beginning of each combat, it makes up to 1 creature attack and up to 1 creature block. It kind of just dominates combat while it's on the board. You force your opponent's small creatures to attack to their death, usually into the Battle Shaper, and then you force their next creature, to block the Battle Shaper. He kind of just eats 2 creatures a turn as long as there's nothing bigger than him on the battlefield.
And so that's something that Meru has up his sleeve in his arsenal. We saw I believe it was a Mulch there.
Yeah, Mulch finding just 1 land, but still dumping a lot of things into the graveyard, including a Lingering Souls.
In the meantime, David content to play lands until this turn, where he is going to play a Geralf's Messenger.
All right, so this is a good start, I'd say, for Kilmartin. Despite the fact that he doesn't really have any plays before turn 3 as far as threats go.
Right.
He's going to have to become the aggro deck in this matchup, which is something that his deck's not used to doing very well. Geralf's Messenger is a great place for him to start, especially because that Lingering Souls in Bhanot's graveyard will keep any Desecration Demons at bay.
So Meru here looks like he's going to flashback that Lingering Souls.
All right, so yeah, remember, Bhanot, because he has this card advantage engine working in his graveyard, really just needs to buy time until he can start hitting, he has better card draw and he has a much stronger late game. So card like Lingering Souls is going to be very strong for him in the matchup.
Geralf's Messenger untaps. David's going to swing in with it.
Yeah, and from Bhanot, we'll probably just see a single chump block. He may take 3 here or chump block it. At some point he's going to start chump blocking, and probably no time like the present.
Yeah, so he goes in and puts a Spirit in front of the Geralf's Messenger. And there we see, I believe, what is that, a Sign in Blood?
Yeah, that is a
promo version.
Yep.
Of a Sign in Blood.
Right, so Kilmartin has his own incremental card advantage. He does have Sign in Blood. He does have the potential to Disciple of Bolas something here to try to compete with all these cards that Bhanot is drawing.
Mm-hmm.
I think the danger for him is that he doesn't really have a true finisher. Remember, his only creatures are Messengers, Thragtusks, Desecration Demons, and then 2 Disciple of Bolas. And because Lingering Souls does such a number on Desecration Demon, it's really down to Thragtusk and Messenger to compete with Bhanot.
Yeah, and he's, at this point, starting off with the Messenger is a reasonable start, but he's got a lot more he's going to have to do to take this game. See his hand, he has, I want to say I saw an Abrupt Decay. I think he's actually discarding it there. And yeah, passes back. So you saw him draw 2 off of that Sign in Blood, ended up having to discard, looking for his 4th land drop, presumably.
Right, so Bhanot's going to swing with 1 with Lingering Souls, and now his deck's going to reach its own pivotal time, and we see Thragtusk.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, these are the 2 Thragtusk decks we have, and Meru is going to go up an additional 5 life.
Yep, and remember, both these decks have 4 Thragtusks.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, one of the only matchups we have in our top 8, which is once again that Thragtusk battle, where both, life totals become pretty irrelevant, and it all becomes about who can play the biggest thing. And advantage goes to the Reanimator deck in this situation.
So we saw at the end of Meru's turn a Cremate to deal with that Boros Battle Shaper.
Yeah, Battle Shaper actually is a card which Kilmartin has a little bit of trouble dealing with. He has 3 Tragic Slips. He has a decent amount of trouble. He has Putrefy and Victim of the Night, so he kind of can deal with it. I think for the most part, David's just using that to cycle it. He wants to find more threats. Right. He could wait to try to 2-for-1 with it, with a cremate, but instead he's opting not to.
So Geralt's Messenger attacks, Thragtusk blocks, which of course brings the messenger back, gives Meru a beast, and now Meru attacks with his 2 tokens and follows up with a Thragtusk number 2. So Meru with most of the creatures.
And here's really one of the dangerous parts of this matchup for David Kilmartin is that Meru's ahead on board, and he's ahead on cards in hand, he's ahead on lands, he's really ahead on every resource right now.
Ahead in life total.
Right, and in life total.
Yeah, double the life total impact.
Yeah, Meru's deck's just able to do much higher impact things.
So, I mean, that Geralt's Messenger can trade with the front half of a Thragtusk, or it can do what David's going to do here and draw some more cards using Disciple of Bolas.
So Disciple of Bolas, yeah, drawing cards there. Kilmartin doesn't want to trade it with the front half of a Thragtusk, so he decides to draw 4 with the Geralt's Messenger instead. That puts him up to 17, but more importantly, it finds him more threats. He's going to have to keep hitting his land drops every turn if he wants to play threats fast enough to deal with what Meru Bhanot's doing.
Yeah, he's already missed his 4th land drop on turn 4. He's since caught up, and he did just find a 5th land there, which he just played. Now, of course, he has to discard because he's almost out of mana, and got plenty of cards in his hand.
Yeah, discarding's pretty fine here for him, simply because of the fact that he has a lot, he's really not choked on how many cards he can have in his hand. The biggest restriction for him is the number of lands he has in play. If you look at the curve of his relevant spells, he has Disciple of Bolas at 4, Messenger at 3, Thragtusk at 5, Demon at 4, Garruk at 4, Liliana at 3, so it's really, at the minimum, it's 6 mana, but it's more like 7 or 8 before he can play 2 spells in 1 turn. So drawing extra cards isn't bad. He just needs to make sure he's hitting lands.
Yeah.
At the point of the game where he can play 2 spells in the turn, he'll presumably have another Disciple of Bolas or some way to draw a lot of cards when he needs to refill his hand.
So I didn't get a good look at what he discarded, and I know one of the cards was a Liliana.
Right.
But Meru here on the attack with the Beast, a Spirit, and a Thragtusk.
Yeah, really undaunted here. The Augur Bolas is just a 2/1. It doesn't have any good blocks.
Disciple of Bolas.
Sorry, Disciple of Bolas, the lesser played one.
Yes.
And he's really putting David Kilmartin on the back foot. He manages to put 4 damage, undoing that Augur of Bolas, and, at the same time eating under the Disciple of Bolas, and at the same time he eats the card.
Yeah. So, just a chump block from David. Going to take the hit from the Beast and the Spirit, and now another Faithless Looting from Meru.
Yeah, that one's, and he's now using the actual good half of Faithless Looting where it's just flashed back from the graveyard. He's going to get to, Meru just wants to make sure that he makes a relevant threat every turn just to continue to push it to his advantage. And to see here, he discards yet another Faithless Looting.
All right, Meru taps 3. Looks like he's got...
Yeah, it looks like a Boros Reckoner.
Yeah, that's what I'm guessing.
He needs to be careful that he plays, because David's drawn 7 cards, he needs to be careful that he's playing around Mutilate here. It's one of the few ways that David can capitalize on card advantage, and you have to think, if you're Meru Bhanot, that his opponent probably has one. I mean, he's drawn so many cards.
At this point, yeah.
Right, so instead...
He's going to go ahead and flash back that Faithless Looting that we saw him dumping at the graveyard from the prior Faithless Looting.
This is a play I really like. He's just setting up for the perfect hand. I think what he's trying to do here is he just wants to go over the top. He's trying to set up a really good Angel of Serenity. Maybe like Unburial Rites in hand, Angel of Serenity in hand. That's something that David's deck, no matter how many cards in hand he has, will have a really hard time dealing with. He only plays 2 cremates. He's already used 1 of them.
So on David's turn, with an empty board, just 5 lands on his side.
Yeah, so David has a pretty big game plan that he has to assemble here. He first has to deal with the board, because the board can kill him in 2 turns. Secondly, he has to find some way to deal with the possibility that Meru's going to play an Angel of Serenity. In the main deck, there aren't very many ways that he can actually deal with this. So, first thing he has to clean up what's going on, and then find a way to win before an Angel hits.
And there's the cleanup right there, the Mutilate, which is going to deal with everybody but the the second half of the Thragtusk.
Yep, and we may see a tragic slip, and we do not. He does actually, despite drawing those cards, did not hit a sixth land. So David's going to be pretty much limited once again to one spell a turn, which is not going to be enough to compete with the plays that Meru Bhanot's making.
Plays 24 lands, so you'd think he'd have hit some off of that big draw step he had. Well, not draw step, but all those cards he drew.
Yeah, so as we see in Bhanot's hand, he has triple Boros Reckoner, and now he has to make a value consideration. Just how much more does he want to commit to the board? So he has Kilmartin down to 10. He probably wants to is going to increase his clock to 2 turns by adding 1 creature. He may try to add 2 in case he's playing on a removal spell, but he has to be careful about another Mutilate.
Yeah, so he plays that Boros Reckoner that we thought he might play last turn, and passes back to David. David draws a card for the turn, found a swamp, so he's up to 6 lands. And it looks like he's got a play, and it is actually another Mutilate, as you suspected he may have.
Well, yeah, I mean, you suspect that David has a lot of different, he's drawn so many cards. Okay, he doesn't have a land. He doesn't, you can kind of start doing by exemption what you think he has.
Right.
It's like, okay, well, if he doesn't have all these things, he probably has a really removal-heavy hand, and he doesn't even have a tragic slip in it. At that point, I think you put him on having another Mutilate.
Right. So finally, for the first time since very early in this game, the board is entirely clear of creatures, with Meru at a healthy 26 and David at 10. Meru has the advantage on lands. He's got 7 to David's 6, and he's got at least 1 Faithless Looting in the graveyard that he can use to flash back. That he can flash back if he'd like.
Yeah, he did get 2 for 1 there by the Mutilate, and so because the number of cards in his hand is getting a little low, he's got to be careful with it. He does have the 1 Faithless Looting left. He wants to make sure that he can find his way to an Angel of Serenity, and that'll rebuy him really all the cards he needs. But right now,
yeah, he's got double Boros Reckoner, so that's the second and third copies of Boros Reckoner that Meru has cast this game.
Yeah, interestingly enough, I think this is where the 4-color Reanimator deck is actually weaker than the Junk Reanimator deck. Boros Reckoner is great against aggro decks, but especially when your opponent's playing all black cards, Boros Reckoner is pretty much a 3/3 for 3.
Yep. And as you see, a Victim of Night, I believe, there to take out one of the Reckoners at the end of Meru's turn.
Yeah.
And Garruk Relentless from David.
Right, and I think where Boros Reckoner is going to be helpful is that it's really hard for David Kilmartin to deal with it with creatures. As we saw that he just took 3 off a Garruk Relentless.
Right.
If he had a Desecration Demon, he probably couldn't even block Boros Reckoner with it.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So the Garruk Relentless trades with the Boros Reckoner, and Meru again on his turn has the it's on him to repopulate his board, and he's got another Faithless Looting to help get that going.
I think what Meru wisely here, normally when you have a Faithless Looting in hand and one in the yard, you flash back the one in the yard to discard the one in the hand, because every time you cast a Faithless Looting from your hand, you're actually losing a card. What Meru is doing here by casting one from his hand is I think he's just trying to dig to Angel of Serenity. So if he wants to do that, what he needs to do is cast as many Faithless Lootings as possible.
Right, so he wants the mana.
He wants the one from his hand, he wants the flashback on the one in the yard,
right.
He wants the flashback on the one in his hand to help him draw 2 extra cards.
Okay. So he finds a Sire of Insanity.
Yeah, a huge hit from Sire of Insanity. The question is, does Kilmartin have another Victim of Night? Remember, Sire's a demon, and demons actually can be killed by Victim of Night. If not, it's going to cost him all his cards.
Yeah, looks like we were going to go with a Cremate.
Yeah, and that's going to not leave him an out. And both players should be discarding their hands at this point. And that's a huge hit for David Kilmartin. We see Desecration Demon and a whole other host of cards hitting the graveyard. So now it's a 6-4 versus nothing, and David Kilmartin's at 7.
And he discards the swamp.
Yeah, David, he draws a card and says go, and Bhanot points out, no, okay, that's fine. Now you have to discard your card.
Right, yeah.
And he's going to chip him down to 1.
Oops.
With that 1 card in hand, Meru Bhanot is going to flashback Faithless Looting.
Yeah, it seems like Meru has a lot more than 1 card, doesn't it?
Well, Faithless Lootings really help cheat that. He does cast it. He discards a Blasphemous Act.
And you can see, I think that's another reason why he was casting the Faithless Lootings from his hand, because he was going to have to discard them anyway.
Right, so Grisly Salvage is out. Now he has an Unburial Rites in the yard, along with Boros Reckoner, just continuing his engine. and it's going to be very hard for Kilmartin. If he's going to win, he's going to have to start by drawing a kill spell here for Sire of Insanity.
And what does he find? Probably a swamp. Yeah, I was going to say it's probably a land now that he's actually in need of a spell.
Yeah, as is usually the case, he goes so long without drawing lands that then finally, once the lands come, they come in droves, and when right when he didn't need it, game 1 goes to Baron Bhanot.
Yeah, that's just kind of how it works. You try to survive that whole time without enough mana to really function.
Yeah. So as you see here, both players looking over each other's deck lists in the top 8 to sideboard for game 2. Meanwhile, you have your own game to do while they're sideboarding.
That's right. It's trivia time. So for those of you guys who have not watched before, what we do is we're going to ask you guys a trivia question. And to participate, you just tweet the answer using Twitter with the hashtag SCG Premium, which you can see down there. And what we do is we choose a random correct answer with that hashtag, and you'll win 3 months of Star City Games Premium access. Tomorrow, during the semifinals, we'll be giving away 6 months, and during the finals, we'll be giving away a whole year of premium. And then we're going to do that whole thing again in the Legacy
tomorrow
top
morning. Exactly.
Yeah, so you guys, tomorrow night. So you guys have plenty of chances to win premium. So for 3 months of SCG Premium, the question for tonight is, well, we've got a pretty big event coming up next week.
Probably 4,500 people big. No,
maybe.
Look, maybe. You could be there.
Know.
You could make it that big.
You could be there. You could make it that big. It's a Grand Prix. It's a Star City Grand Prix. Those are always very special.
Just the second one that we've had.
That's right. Well, actually, not. There was the original Gold Rush.
Okay, so the third one we've had. You're absolutely right.
So there is a Grand Prix next week. What city is it in?
Yeah.
If you've been watching all day, you've seen some promos for this particular Grand Prix. This is a real softball. Anybody who's been watching should know the answer to this one.
So just make sure that you have SCG Premium on it, and we will announce the winner at the end of the top 8.
Yeah, you don't need to tweet at SCG Live or at anybody. Just tweet the answer, include that SCG Premium in that hashtag in the tweet, and you're in the running as long as you have the correct answer. Because if you got it wrong, then
So bring us back to the match. We just have right now Meru Bhanot up 1 game in what seems to be a pretty good matchup for him against David Kilmartin. Kilmartin's going to have to find a way to unlock this matchup. You know, it really does seem like his cards are poorly positioned for it, so he's going to have to try to find a way to sneak in.
Yeah, he does have 3 copies of Appetite for Brains, so that can do some work. Typical kind of sideboard card for these Reanimator decks. Oh, we can see the sideboards up there. I'm going to use that instead of the list in front of us. So, yeah, you can see he's got the 3 Appetite for Brains there. He's got more removal. Sever the Bloodline, I mean, is something he can use to deal with some of the bigger guys.
So there's a number of ways that David can approach this matchup based on his sideboard. I think first of all, he can try to not kill things and exile things instead. Meru's deck is a Reanimator deck, and you see that when you mentioned Appetite for Brains, Sever the Bloodline. They're excellent because they deal with the threats permanently. At the same time, what we notice in that matchup is that the threats Meru actually never cast an Unburial Rites. It wasn't the reanimating creatures that killed David. It was the fact that Meru had a great card advantage engine. So while you might think, he wants to board in Sever's Appetites, maybe even Crypt Incursion to empty the graveyards, what we notice is that Meru doesn't really need to reanimate creatures. He's just actually drawing more cards.
Yeah.
So if you're Kilmartin, so he can try to exile the creatures and draw, but we also might see him board in things like his Underworld connections. He just needs to outdraw his opponent.
That's an interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought about that. I think, but I think that's a good point. As far as card draw goes, I think that's the only card in his board that he has that he can use to draw more cards.
I do think we'll see him use Sever the Bloodline because Sever the Bloodline does have a flashback cost on it. In a way, it is a card draw. He gets to cast it twice.
Yeah.
I do think we'll probably see Crypt Incursion out of him just because if he has a card like that in his sideboard, you have to think this is the matchup he's planning on having it for.
Yeah, I agree.
On Bhanot's side, we saw Boros Reckoner in that last matchup be pretty underwhelming, and I think we're going to see those cards come out for sure. They're for the aggro matchup, and because Meru Bhanot has such a diverse sideboard, he has a lot of different ways he can go with the deck. I think we'll just see things like Acidic Slime, Olivia Voldaren, Assemble the Legion. These are all cards that he actually has in his sideboard. I think he just wants things that hit harder. He wants to become less of a Reanimator deck and just more bank on the fact that his cards are more powerful.
Yeah. So it looks like we've got. Well, I think David's evaluating his opening 7. I'm trying to see what I can see. I see a Mutilate. I see a Swamp. It looks like David may have
a Sign in Blood. It's a couple and a pair of Swamps. It seems like a hand that would be hard for Kilmartin to ship. He's going to, so we must have missed something in it.
Yeah, and so is Meru is also going to go to 6. So.
Yeah. So as these players go to 6, we're going to talk about a little bit, if you followed from the beginning and are wondering how some other people are doing in the top 8, we have in our 1 versus 8 matchup, Alex Evans up a game on Daniel Duterte. Remember, Alex is playing a red-green aggro deck. He's our overall 1 seed. Daniel Duterte snuck in, to the top 8. He needed some help in the feature match we watched. Actually, he needed an assist from the Hexproof player, and he got that to sneak in at 8th. He's playing Junk Reanimator, but Duterte's down a game, and he's going to have to battle his way back in. Remember, the winner of that match plays the winner of this one.
Okay, yeah, and that's the match that we also discussed. The fact that the red-green deck has such a good matchup against the Junk Reanimator because it's going to go ahead and get under there before the Junk Reanimator can really set up.
Yeah, so Alex Evans, the person, we said before, I thought he might win the tournament because of how the bracket favored him. Also, he's been playing really well this weekend. He's got to be pretty happy if he knows that David Kilmartin's down a game, as The Rock has got probably his worst matchup in the field.
Also, the Esper table looks like
the Esper table is on game 3 actually. Yeah. So this is Robert Cedar. He is one of our undefeated players. He's playing Esper Planeswalkers, losing game 1 but taking game 2 from Lloyd Kurth, who's on Esper control. So there will be an Esper in our top 4. We'll keep you informed on which one makes it there.
All right, these guys have their 6. Are they keepable? I see a Thragtusk. I see a land, black-green duel. I see, I believe, an Appetite for Brains. I think I may have seen a Garruk Relentless, but I'm not sure about that.
Right, and
it looks like a keep.
It doesn't look like a happy keep from him. It looks kind of a shrug. Like I guess I'll keep.
Yeah.
We do see the Appetite for Brains. And what I like about Kilmartin is rather than shocking, he just chose to not, just to not cast Appetite.
Right.
In a matchup which is slow like this, it's worth your time to wait a couple turns before casting Appetite. It's not like Bhanot is going to be able to dump many of his cards that cost more than 4.
Right. And you see Unburial Rites.
Blasphemous Act, 3 lands. Grisly Salvage, 2 lands.
And Angel of Serenity, which is actually hit with the Appetite.
Interestingly enough, Meru has decided to keep Blasphemous Act in this deck, which only makes me think that he's also decided to keep in his Boros Reckoner. So it'll be interesting to see what game plan he's chosen to go with for this matchup.
He may just try to assemble the old Act 2 combo.
Right.
So we'll see. And David passes the turn back. Meru plays the Sun Petal Grove and passes.
Yeah, depending on how much instant speed removal David's actually kept in, this might be a really wise plan for him.
Right. And David finds his 3rd land and just passes back, so it's just land go at this point.
Yeah, on a mull to 6, especially in a matchup like this, the one thing you don't want to be short on is lands, and both players, to their credit, have kept hands that are not short on lands.
Yeah.
Meru doesn't have much that he can cast right now, which is the one part that could be a little awkward for him. He has, as we saw, that Grisly Salvage, but no black source yet.
So Geralf's Messenger comes down for David Kilmartin, and he, I believe, just missed his 4th land drop for the 2nd consecutive game.
Yeah, this game it may be enough. It remains to be seen. Bhanot doesn't have any plays yet, so we're going to see a mulch from him here. But if he doesn't find a black source or some way to stand corrected, yeah, I was gonna say if he doesn't find some action, this Geralf's Messenger could do a lot of damage. But this is his engine is getting very online here. Now that he has 2 more lands, a Faithless Looting in the yard, and a Grisly Salvage enabled in his hand, he's got a lot of action all of a sudden.
So that mulch hits 2 lands, and he's going to go ahead and play that Godless Shrine untapped.
Yeah. Meru still has to be careful that he's not too cavalier with his life total. Remember, Geralf's Messenger, even when you're able to kill it, still takes chunks of your life points with it. So, he has in his hand, fortunately, a Sever the Bloodline to deal with Geralf's Messenger, but he still needs to, make sure that he's not taking too much incidental damage.
So Geralf's Messenger gets in for 3. And a 4th land is found for David Kilmartin.
Yeah, Bhanot is at 13 now, and he does not have a Thragtusk as of yet. So it's possible Kilmartin can continue to chip away at his life total. Nonetheless,
go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, nonetheless, I still think that Bhanot's in a pretty good situation.
Right, just his typical kind of card advantage engine.
Yeah.
Is really coming together. All right, so it was David Kilmartin, who was tanking there, he decides to cast a Desecration Demon.
Yeah, and you have to wonder what he thinks his other play is. Possibly Augur. He probably thinking Disciple of Bolas. It's really hard for him to play anything other than Desecration Demon. He's got to be the aggressor here, and Desecration Demon is the most aggressive card in his deck, especially when he hasn't seen a Lingering Souls
Right.
from Meru yet.
So you see a Grisly Salvage from Meru there at the end of turn. You got Reckoner, Faithless Looting, double lands, and Meru's going to take one of those Reckoners and everything else to the bin.
Yeah, so taking the Boros Reckoner there gives him an answer, well, a theoretical answer to the Geralf's Messenger. Meru has got to know that that's a lukewarm answer at best, especially when your opponent's playing as many removal spells as David Kilmartin is.
Yeah.
The danger about playing Boros Reckoner here is that you don't have enough mana to do anything else, and that one kill spell will drop you to a very low life total.
So Meru chooses to use Sever the Bloodline to deal with that Desecration Demon.
Yeah, and I really like that play. Meru cannot, under any circumstance, afford to take a hit from that Desecration Demon. It just deals too much damage. And he also still has the ability to flash back Sever the Bloodline on Geralf's
Right.
Messenger.
Yeah, he's already building up to that point. In the meantime, Geralf's Messenger is going to keep taking chunks out of his life total, and Meru now down to 10, I believe, from that last hit from the Messenger. David finds an Overgrown Tomb, which he's going to play
see Thrag
untapped.
Tusk.
And there's a Thragtusk from David Kilmartin.
And David's doing exactly what he needs to in this matchup. He just, his deck is a little threat light. It only has 14 creatures in it. If he can continue to make creatures, though, that's exactly how he wants to attack Meru Bhanot. He can't let this go to the late game.
So with the Thragtusk and a Geralf's Messenger, he passes his turn to Meru. Meru is going to have to find some way to answer all these creatures. As you mentioned, he's got the Sever the Bloodline in the bin that he can flash back once he reaches enough lands, but he is not there yet.
Right, so as we see, he has a couple options. He can flash back the Faithless Looting on 3. He obviously wants to be building toward the Sever the Bloodline to take care of Geralf's Messenger. He has Boros Reckoner in his hand, which in theory could answer either of these creatures.
Right.
But you know that David Kilmartin's playing a black deck, so that's not really the line you want to choose.
Yeah. You feel like it's a shaky answer.
It's one of those lines that you might play, but when you play it, you're kind of gritting your teeth the whole time. I don't really think this is going to work,
right.
but I really hope it does.
And I think that's what's going through Meru's head right now. I'm just like, I have this Reckoner. I don't know. Yeah. I hope it's going to work.
And if anything, this is really showcasing the power of Appetite for Brains. If the Angel of Serenity was still in Meru's hand, this would be so much more of a comfortable position for him.
Well, he has that Burial Rites.
Yeah, and what I really like is that the way that Kilmartin but chose not to turn on the Appetite for Brains. It's very possible the Angel was the first card Meru drew.
Very possible.
And if it was, then that enabled him to take the Angel with the Appetite for Brains, whereas it wouldn't have been there if he'd have turn 1'd it.
Exactly.
Because David didn't have a turn 2 play, there was no penalty to playing it on turn 2.
Right. So now David's turn. He untaps his 5 lands. He's got a Thragtusk and a Geralf's Messenger.
Yeah. Does he have the kill spell for Reckoner? You think he does.
He's got something going on. It looks like it's going to be a Disciple, I'm thinking.
And if it is a Disciple, that's got to be great news for Meru. And it's not. It is Sever the Bloodline.
Sever the Bloodline, so it's the removal spell.
Yep, it's the one Sever he has out of the board. We said before, these 2-for-1s are going to be really important for him in the matchup. Even if he doesn't get to cast the second half of it, that kill spell is excellent here.
So that's 8 damage coming across, going to knock Meru to 2. And Meru's going to go ahead and Grisly Salvage at the end of turn. Finds, I believe that was a Gisela, a Thragtusk, 2 lands, and a Faithless Looting.
You have to think he's taking the Thragtusk. He can't be at 2 life because right now he can't even block or kill Geralf's Messenger because he's at 2. It seems a no-brainer. He's going to need more life points to win this game.
Yeah, I think that that Gisela is calling to him with the siren song of those angels, but Thragtusk is really what.
Well, he doesn't have an Unburial Rites yet, I don't believe.
Yeah.
So he's going to have to find his way to an Unburial Rites. He does have
I think he does have Unburial Rites, actually. I think that yes, he does. He has an Unburial Rites.
Oh, in hand.
Yes, he does.
Oh, okay, now I was going to say not in the yard, so there's
not
one
in the
in
yard.
his hand.
Yes, exactly. We saw it actually on the Appetite.
Okay. So yeah, he does have that. So the Thragtusk is pretty much what he needed to find off that.
He's in a reasonable spot here. I think we're just going to see the Thragtusk, I imagine.
It looks like he's he's just
deciding
how to
just
tap
switching
for
things
it.
out, yeah.
Yep, and we'll see. Right, the Thragtusk. So he still will be alive for next turn. The Thragtusk is going to likely have to trade with the other Thragtusk.
Right.
Because otherwise he still takes 7 damage, so he's kind of locked in on a play here.
Yeah. Now, David has missed his land drops again for a couple of turns. He is nowhere near being able to flash back that Sever the Bloodline.
Yeah, so we do have one update. In our 2 versus 7 matchup, undefeateds continue to be undefeated as Panda Win takes 2-1 over Kevin Zeit, the Naya Aggro versus Jund Aggro matchup.
And it's exactly as we thought.
Yeah, well, it's a really close matchup. Both decks are almost the same in size, but the slightly bigger creatures from Panda's deck were able to take the match.
So you see David reading Gisela, Blade of Gold Knight. So we'll put that up on the screen for you guys.
There was a Reanimator deck in Avacyn Block constructed, and this is one of its targets for it. It hasn't really seen much play since then, but Gisela is pretty much unbeatable once it's on the battlefield as far as combat goes. It doesn't have a way to protect itself from black cards, but it basically doubles all your damage and halves all your opponent's damage. If creatures fight, basically your creatures just win.
Right. Yeah, it's a really, really, really strong card once it's on board, and if they can't find a way to deal with it. But in the meantime, you see David swinging with both of his guys. The Thragtusks trade, as we suspected, and Meru falls to 4 off of a hit from the Geralf's Messenger, leaving behind 2 beasts, one on each side of the table. David finds his 6th land. I want to say 6th, or yeah, I believe it was his 6th land. Yep. And
All right, so yeah, and you said before, David unfortunately not hitting lands, and I think that's not so much of a problem in his, like, he's not getting unlucky. It's kind of just a consequence of playing a deck with not very much card draw. And, naturally hitting 7 lands when you're not playing cards like Mulch, is actually fairly difficult for a deck, and most decks don't want to. We see here.
I was more concerned when he missed his 4th land drop 2 games in a row.
Yeah, we see here he's playing a 24 land deck.
Yeah.
That's only marginally more lands than an aggro deck. So aggro decks hate hitting 7.
So we have an Angel of Serenity.
Angel of Serenity and Crypt Incursion in response to Angel of Serenity. So Crypt Incursion, a pretty powerful card. If we, it's pretty narrow, but it looks like Meru targeted his own Thragtusk and both of Kilmartin's creatures. What Crypt Incursion does is it exiles all the creatures in target player's graveyard, and he gains 3 life for each one exiled. This situation, it exiled 3 creatures, so he gained 9. More importantly, he can now kill that Angel of Serenity without Meru rebuying the Thragtusk.
All right, so Meru trying to find a way to get back into this game, down to 4 life. There you see the Crypt Incursion.
I would say he's definitely back in it at this point.
And David has found that 7th land, so he's going to go ahead and flash back Sever the Bloodline, dealing with that Angel of Serenity, getting back his Geralf's Messenger.
Right, and here's a terrifying thing. Meru's at 4, and David has a Geralf's Messenger in hand. The card which is pretty good at dealing 4 damage.
Yeah, it's pretty good at that. So you see the Lone Beast token, the only creature left on board that is on Meru's side. We're going to see I believe that was a knocked on Faithlessly.
Right, well, there are no creatures left in his deck, so he's going to have to, do some work here.
Yeah.
He draws 2 things. I don't believe either of them are creatures. It looks like he has drawn possibly a Harvest. Yeah, he's drawn as one of Harvest Pyre, so he definitely still has his Boros Reckoners in. As we've seen one of them, it's got to be the whole set. So he has Blasphemous Act and Harvest Pyre. Surprisingly, he doesn't discard either of them. He's going to burn through more Faithless Lootings.
Yeah, just trying to find some sort of answer. So on David's side, we know he's got at least that Geralf's Messenger in hand. I don't know what his other card is. He's got 2 cards and then something off the top. He can play the Messenger to knock Meru to 2 if he has some way to even kill his own Messenger.
Yeah, I mean, if he has a Disciple of Volus,
that's just
then Messenger, then he can deal lethal.
Yeah.
But he only has so many turns to do it. Remember that the 4-color Reanimator deck, just like is even more so than the Junk Reanimator deck, is really good at sifting through all its cards very quickly. So here
we go. There's the Geralf's Messenger after taking a hit from the beast.
And does he have the combo? And he does.
Disciple of Bolus.
That's going to sacrifice it, dealing 2 more damage to Meru. Does he have an answer?
Kill you. And there it is.
He does not. Kilmartin finds a way to get there. Gets through Meru Bhanot's deck. We're going to go to game 3.
Yeah.
I can't express how much I like how David played that game. He really managed to just he maximized all his threats in the deck. He has a lot of removal spells, and I like how what he's done with his sideboard is he's just made it all about playing creatures and trying to contain what Bhanot is doing. You can't really stop it because his deck doesn't have the cards to do that, but he just needs to, he needs to jam threats and just not lose. The problem is he probably can't jam threats fast enough to race Angel of Serenity. So Angel of Serenity a huge problem for his deck. So instead what he's done is he's saying, well, I'm going to try to not let Angel of Serenity be amazing. So what did we see? The first one got Appetite for Brains.
Right.
The second one, Crypt Incursion stopped it from rebuying, and he was able just to kill off 2 Angel of Serenities and deal exactly 20.
And the funny thing is how that Angel actually allowed him to recast that Geralf's Messenger and have that combo, because even if for some reason the Geralf's Messenger had been dealt with otherwise, if he didn't get it back, maybe it had been exiled from a Sever the Bloodline, as we thought that Meru was working towards, rather than Angel of Serenity. What if Meru had decided to go with that line instead of, because he had the Sever, right? He still had the Sever to flash back. He could have severed the Messenger instead of casting Angel of Serenity.
Right, and
that would have dealt with the
well, it still would have been the Thrag Tusk token.
Okay,
which he exiled. But you're right, because he was at 4. It may have been that Meru was supposed to do that play. I think the temptation of rebuying Thrag Tusk was pretty high there, and that's what Meru was playing toward. We didn't get a chance to talk about Meru's sideboard. So
that's right.
Yeah, we did notice what he did decide to do is keep in his Boros Reckoner combos. This is Blasphemous Act, Boros Reckoner, Harvest Pyre. So one of the options would have been to sideboard that out. I think what he's chosen to do instead is just to sideboard out some of, well, not too much. I think he sided maybe his Lingering Souls, though I'm even a little skeptical on that. What he does have is he has boarded in the Gisela. As we saw, he may have boarded in Acidic Slime. I would imagine he has. It's a control deck. He usually uses it in that matchup.
Yeah, especially seeing his opponent getting, being in these situations where he can cast 1 spell a turn.
Yeah, the other cards, which I think he has a bunch of ways to do it. Olivia Voldaren, if he just wants to go mono good threats, Olivia Voldaren's a great choice. It demands an answer. But that said, a black deck does have a lot of answers to it, so he may not use that one. He could also use Pillar of Flames if he wants to try and contain Geralf's Messenger. It's the only card in David's deck that it's good against, but it is very good against Geralf's Messenger.
Yeah, and that Messenger, actually, that one Messenger is what did the majority of that damage there, I think, in that game. At least it got things started. And then it ended things alongside that Disciple of Bolas. It's that same Messenger. Some
bad news for Kilmartin and some good news for Bhanot here. In the 1 versus 8 matchup, we had actually quite a comeback. Down 1 game, Daniel Duterte in his Junk Reanimator deck offed the #1 seed, Alex Evans. So Red Green Aggro will not be making an appearance tomorrow morning, but Daniel Duterte and Junk Reanimator will await the winner of this match.
Yeah, and that's kind of an upset, too, because we thought that the edge was Alex Evans, just because of the nature of his deck is actually to deal with the Junk Reanimator style decks.
It's one of those few reasons why seeding is so important. I mean, to win this, we knew that Daniel Duterte with a Junk Reanimator deck had to beat Red Green Aggro while on the draw.
Right.
Because Alex automatically was on the play and got to win game 1. Daniel was able to pull that off game 3, and now if you're Daniel, you're hoping for the Rock to win here. As we've seen here, the Rock has a really hard time dealing with any sort of Reanimator strategy, whereas 4-color Reanimator versus Junk Reanimator, that's a much closer matchup. It probably even favors the 4-color deck. So Duterte's got to be cheering for Kilmartin in the background.
Yeah.
I don't believe that's
him.
That's not him.
Duterte.
No.
Somebody else
if he's watching, I believe he's got to be cheering for that matchup. Sorry, that's not him. Apologies. That's not.
In the background somewhere else.
In the background somewhere else. If he's watching the match, he certainly has a horse in the race.
All right, we're underway. Both players within Shockland on turn 1 coming into play tapped, so they're preserving their life totals at this point. Lead with a Mulch, hits a Sire of Insanity, Boros Reckoner, Cavern of Souls, and another Boros Reckoner.
So a lot of creatures in the graveyard. Kilmartin probably wants to be a little wary of Sire of Insanity. He really wants to hope that Meru does not reanimate that card. As we saw game 1, it's really devastating for his deck.
On the other hand, if he wants to Unburial Rites a Boros Reckoner, that doesn't seem as scary.
No, Boros Reckoner, not
I'll
nearly
pay
as
4
scary.
mana for 4 or 5 for my 3-mana guy.
Yeah, so Kilmartin, no plays on turn 2. Remember, he has no creatures on turn 2. His only turn 2 plays are Tragic Slip, Cremate, Victim of Night,
Yeah,
Sign
essentially
in Blood.
removal spells and draw spells.
Right, so really the task we'll see what his game plan is this game when he plays his 3rd land.
I think he's got an Abrupt Decay there. I think I see a Mutilate in his hand, which the artwork on that particular Mutilate, for some reason, it's very like orangey yellow. It keeps reminding me of Batterskull. I keep seeing it. not Batterskull.
Right, so he's gonna Grizzly Salvage main phase here. Meru makes that play so that if he wants to, he can play a tapped land. So he can play, not shock himself. It looks like the thing he needs is more mana, and he's gonna take the Sunpetal Grove. He does have represent the turn 4 Sire of Insanity.
Or turn 4 Angel of Serenity.
Turn 4 is whatever he wants.
Yeah.
He has, outside of Battle Shaper, he has all the large targets in his deck in his graveyard. Well, and the Gisela out of the sideboard.
So David plays his 3rd land and passes. Meru is going to go ahead and draw his card, finds a Godless Shrine off the top.
Right. So no Geralf's Messenger means this is going to be a bit tougher of a game for David Kilmartin. Interestingly, I'm wondering whether or not Bhanot sided out his Lingering Souls in this matchup. We know he's gone through a lot of his deck and we haven't seen anything.
Not last game either. There's a 3rd Boros Reckoner, and that one's going to immediately be decayed.
Yeah, because of his land situation, Bhanot was not able to cast Unburial Rites this turn, and I'm pretty sure that he didn't have another land there. It's interesting that he chose last turn to play Sunpetal Grove and this turn to play Isolated Chapel. In the other order, he could have cast Unburial Rites this turn.
Yeah, actually, I think he just drew the Isolated Chapel.
So he actually
I thought it was a Godless Shrine. Yeah, I actually called it Godless Shrine, but it was Isolated Chapel.
And here's something: Bhanot has sided in. He drew a Slaughter Games that he's chosen to play out of the sideboard.
Yeah, very interesting.
And I'm not sure what card he's so concerned about that he needs to play Slaughter Games. And we'll see what it is.
We're gonna find out right now.
Whatever it is, he's worried enough about it that I think he believes Slaughter Games in here is more important than reanimating a Sire of Insanity. So we'll see the card that he chooses to name.
Yeah, that says a lot. Whatever.
That says there's some card he's very concerned about in the matchup.
Because a lot of times when you Slaughter Games, you kind of partly just want to name a card that they have like 1 of or 2 of in their hand, just so because you can.
Yeah, if you have that information, it's great.
Right, you get the information, or yeah.
Right.
So
if you have a read on this board, what would you be naming right now? Because I have one in mind. I'm just curious.
Well, if I've sided out my Lingering Souls, maybe I am concerned about a Desecration Demon.
So if I'm here, think about this. We saw David do nothing on turn 3, do nothing on turn 4, right?
Right.
I'm naming Thragtusk.
Okay.
Okay, because I'm assuming that my opponent is good enough that he did not keep a 0 creature hand.
Right.
And if you look at it, well, he could have played any other creature. I'm going to guess that there's a lot of Thragtusks in his hand. So he's named Desecration Demon. So we get to see his hand. His hand had a Desecration Demon in it. It also had 1 Desecration Demon in it. I believe it also did have...
It had Disciple of Bolas, Abrupt Decay, Mutilate, and I'm not sure what that card is right there.
I believe it also had a Thragtusk.
It could be a Cremate. That front card?
We will see for a second.
That one.
Okay, so perhaps he took guess. I guess he did not have a Thragtusk. So a point there, So it's Cremate, Woodland Cemetery, Disciple of Bolas, and Abrupt Decay, Mutilate. Nothing here that Bhanot should be particularly concerned about.
Yeah.
The Mutilate, interestingly enough, what he's decided to do is now he has the information that there is a Cremate in Kilmartin's hand, so he's going to be a little more conservative with that Unburial Rites. Update. This is all the other 3 matches are finished. So this one will be the final match of the evening. After losing game 1, Robert Cedar with his Esper Planeswalkers deck, is able to take the match over Lloyd Kurth. So we'll have tomorrow morning our battle of the 2 undefeated players, Robert Cedar and Panda Huyn, in the semifinals.
We're watching that one.
Yeah, that one will.
I'm calling it right now.
Yeah, both players undefeated today, going 8-0 double draw. And as often as the case, they get the 2 and 3 seed, and we'll get the undefeated matchup tomorrow morning.
So, back to this match, which has actually been really kind of interesting to see how this is going. David does nothing with his turn there, passes back. So, interesting that he decided not to play the Desecration Demon on turn 4.
Yeah, so they didn't play it on turn 4. I think why he didn't play it on turn 4 is because he felt the need to keep up Cremate. Because otherwise he was very worried if he plays Desecration Demon, if his opponent maybe Unburial Rites, an Angel, or a Sire of Insanity, he's probably down.
Right.
So a heads-up play, but and that's a pretty good read of why then he wouldn't have played it on turn 4.
Yeah, no, that actually makes total sense. So Meru plays his 6th land. That is a Cavern of Souls. I believe he named... Well, what did he name? He pointed at David, so I'm thinking maybe he named David. But
it doesn't particularly matter. He names Angel, and as that actually is his Well, he already has 3 white sources. It's not particularly relevant what he names here.
He did
There's no
name
counter
Angel, though.
spells.
So, looks like he is going to flashback the Unburial Rites.
All right, and this is going to draw out the Cremate.
Right, to target the Angel of Serenity, and yeah, that does draw out the Cremate.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that's... if I'm Meru, I kind of wish... I don't know how much I would want to make that play. I think what it seems to me like he's doing is he's clearing the way for another Unburial Rites that might be in his hand.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you don't really... Because when you cast a spell and let it get cremated in response, it doesn't only cost you the spell. It costs you the card in the graveyard at the turn and the Unburial Rites.
Right.
Whereas if you just make David play it on his own terms, all he gets is the card. He doesn't get the turn or the Unburial Rites.
Right. So, David plays the land, passes back. You see a Grizzly Salvage at the end of turn. Meru finds Boros Reckoner, Stomping Ground, Thragtusk, Dragon Skull, Summit, and a Blasphemous Act.
Yeah, and not a tough choice from here. Remember, the beauty of the Reanimator deck is that it doesn't really need to reanimate. He's just going to take a Thragtusk, which he has every intention of casting.
Yeah, he's going to go ahead and move those exiled cards to the exiled zone alongside the Desecration Demons. They're all just going to hang out there.
And the longer this game goes on, the more it's going to be in Meru's favor. David Kilmartin still has the ability, if he draws a large creature, to draw 6 off the Disciple of Bolas. What he's going to have to do to try to contain this Angel is get, maybe not draw 6, like he's going to have to get a Geralf's Messenger, Disciple of Bolas, and then Crypt Incursion, or do something like that. It's going to be pretty difficult for him, as Meru he's reached the end game. He's kind of reached Angel time.
Yeah, he has. Angel time.
Angel time.
There's that Unburial Rites that you suspected may be in his hand. He's going to go for Sire.
Instead of casting the Unburial Rite, instead of casting the Angel in his hand.
Or casting the Angel, yeah.
Yeah, he's just going to go straight for Sire of Insanity. And he knows that Kilmartin's hand was Mutilate Land, Abrupt Decay, Disciple of Bolas.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
Sticks and everything's in the bin, so we're in top deck mode, except one player has a Crawl Worm.
Yeah, one player has a Crawl Worm, and the player with the Crawl Worm also has an Unburial Rites in the graveyard.
Yeah.
It's,
actually has more cards in his
hand.
Hand, right. And David does top deck an Answer.
Putrefy, both players with an empty hand. Now you're going to see the power, I believe, of Angel of Serenity.
Yeah.
As Meru's hand will be anything but empty. Or not his hand, but his ability to play
He's going to have a 5/6, which is going to reload his hand if David even finds an answer for it. So I'm going to flash back on Unburial Rites on Angel of Serenity. I think I'll grab Thragtusk, Sire of Insanity, and Thragtusk.
Yeah, interesting enough, he chose all 3 of the best creatures, so he's not even concerned about what happens when he draws another Unburial Rites. He's before he's concerned about that, David's going to have to answer this Angel.
Yeah, he's like, I'm just going to attack you with Mahamoti Jin until you can...
oh, by the way, and there's a second ability in this Mahamoti Jin, and it's, if you kill it, I get Thragtusk, Sire of Insanity in my hand. So it's a slight upgrade on the card.
It's a Mahamoti that gives me an Ancestral Recall if you deal with it. All right, so far, Meru's just fighting with old cards from like Alpha, right? So he's got
he's got another Angel of Serenity,
Mahamoti Jin, Ancestral Recall.
Yeah, interesting enough, this might be a little bit of a greedy play, because
triple Boros Reckoner under
no, because it doesn't matter. I was gonna say because now David could play another Swamp and could Mutilate, and then he can't loop Angels. But I mean, if David does that and mutilates, Meru gets a 6-card hand. That's incredible. And
yeah, it's really not. He's still not in a bad position. So, unfortunately for David, he needs to find an answer right now, and I don't know that he did. He's at 5 life. He's facing down 10 power worth of guys. He's going to, looks like, cremate something, I think. Yeah, he's going to cremate
He needs to find an answer, though we're not sure what he's looking for.
I mean, anything he finds is just going to buy him time for the moment.
Yeah, well, and this is the thing where he said there was this window which we saw David use really well game 2, where it's, he has to win quickly, because once we get to this late game, he can stall Meru's late game, but he can't actually answer it.
So he finds a Sever the Bloodline. So he's
punishing Meru for playing.
It's an answer.
That's what you get for playing 2 Angel Serenities. Those are not in the
Pulse.
graveyard. Yeah, those are exiled. Unfortunately, Meru's hand now is Reckoner, Thragtusk, Sire of Insanity. So as long as Meru doesn't cast the Sire of Insanity as his first creature, I think he still has in a really good spot.
I don't know. We'll see if we'll see how greedy he is.
That's the play he's going to have to see.
Like,
don't cast
wait a second.
the Sire.
This guy has the biggest power. I want to play him.
I want to play the biggest one first. Let's go.
That's right.
What he actually will probably want to do is play 2 creatures with different names. Like 1 Reckoner, 1 Thragtusk, because the Sever is in his yard.
Yeah, and he has
in Kilmartin's yard.
So it looks like he's going to go ahead with Reckoner first.
Yep, Reckoner's going to start. And
he-
another
he's gonna
Reckoner.
go
Okay.
Reckoner,
You know,
Reckoner.
and when you have 3 Reckoners in your hand, wow, and he doesn't even play the Shockland to make
I'm at
Thrag
20,
Tusk.
but I need to make sure that I preserve that 2 life.
That's
the
just-
2 Thrag
that's just
Tusks in my hand are
beautiful.
not enough.
Well, Kilmartin's gonna be forced into the play of severing both these Boros Reckoners.
Yeah, he is. I mean, and that's
yeah.
what Meru's doing. He's dictating what David has to do if he wants to stay in this game, and that's what he's saying. Okay, I'll spend my turn making you waste your turn. You're at 5, I'm at 20, and I have tons of cards in my hand. 2 of which, or I'll just draw another Angel.
I was drawing. By the way, he plays 4.
Yeah, he's cast 2 and drawn the 3rd. So actually, I'm sorry, 1 was on burial rights, so I guess he cast 1. And Reckoner, Sire of Insanity.
Interesting. So he opts for Sire. I don't.
Sire.
Well, I don't understand why you'd cast Sire, but okay, all right. He's gonna cast Sire of Insanity. I mean, it doesn't really matter what he casts.
But it just
I
seems-
like casting Angels and Thrag Tusks, but I
Yeah.
guess it doesn't. All the creatures win the game. It's fine.
Yeah.
And
So-
is that last card an answer from Meru Bhanot? Or sorry, from David Kilmartin? Can he answer this seemingly never-ending stream of creatures? No. Meru Bhanot, 2 games to 1, defeats David Kilmartin for our final quarterfinal match of the day.
Yeah, that was, and that, look at that 50-minute